It's February 15th, 2021. It's Monday. You know what Monday means, right? They've announced the new Challenger decks. Only joking, that happened a couple of days ago and I don't give a fuck. Mondays are sometimes the surprise Banned and Restricted announcement, and today was a Banned and Restricted announcement. It was the one that we've been waiting for a while. People have been clambering for this in Legacy and Modern, and to a lesser extent other formats too, because there's a lot of shit in those formats that it's just frustrating to play with. Probably should have washed my hair, but lockdown, am I right? We knew something was coming because during the Secret Lair announcement, they told us that Uro will not be too long for this world, and Modern, Pioneer, and Historic, which is pretty fucking wild that a card is that good. I got a video on that, it'll be in the cards and shit if you want to go back and see me talking about that. We didn't know what Monday that would come though. Would it be this Monday? Next Monday? The Monday after? We just didn't know. You can announce an announcement, but you can't give us a date. I mean, I'm saying that as if I'm being sarcastic and harsh about the fact, but in all honesty, it is a bit difficult, right? Like, if you tell us it's happening next Monday, then no one will play any of the formats. But not knowing if it is the following Monday after you say this, then no one's going to play any of the formats. It's weird. I'm asking for more communication from Wizards of the Coast, but it's a difficult one because if they announce an announcement per se, they just fuck all their formats up. So today's the day. Uro was banned in 3 different formats and he's kind of being watched in Legacy. But the most exciting thing about today's Banned and Restricted announcements is that they have banned a lot of shit. And I know some of you are sat in the comments and probably thinking, fuck, I'm tired of bans. But honestly, I think this is a good thing. I think they need to manage the mess they've made with power creep design. Like, this kind of approach where they're trying to clear up the problems that they've made, coupled with some more reserved or on-point design going forward. Well, that is yet to be seen, but with those two things tied together, we can get Magic back to a good place, right? We all feel the frustrations of Magic at the moment, not only because of pandemics and lack of pay to play, but also the pushing of power level and the constant bans, but they don't feel like they're enough. I am personally of 2 ways, right? They either need to push the power level and push the boundaries and be ban happy to make sure they fix things, or they need to rein it right back and stop banning so much stuff. I don't think this option is really going to happen, so we're in this one. So I think they need to take a much more closer look at the formats more regularly and ban and update things. It's not ideal, it's not perfect, but it's the world we live in. Let's start with each of the formats then. So in Historic, Omnath and Uro are both banned. Omnath was already suspended, which suggests that it might come off the ban list, but they've basically said it's too fucking good. Like, we all know it is, and it is fucking gone, as is Uro. And that's gonna be a regular theme as we go through the formats, right? Uro was too good. It was just too good. It was absurd how good that card is. It's frustrating it took them this long to admit it, but you know, being late is better than never, right? Pioneer, Balustrade Spy, Teferi, Time Raveler, Undercity Informer, Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, and Wilderness Reclamation are banned. Both Teferi and Wilderness Reclamation were banned because they are just unfair bullshit cards that were frustrating in Standard, and they recognise that Pioneer is kind of like Standard Plus, right? So they recognise that people don't want to play against this shit. Uro was just too good. He was basically the most played creature across every fucking format, so he's gone. And then Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer, they're gone because, well, no, Oops or Spells isn't quite where Wizards wants Pioneer to be. This is a deck that played no actual land permanents, it self-milled itself using Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer, and then finished you off in some way. I'm actually, off the top of my head, without looking it up, I don't know what the win con for the Pioneer variant was. I'm assuming it was Thassa's Oracle, because, yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish, right? The homogenization of combo decks due to, like, the most powerful finishers, but I'm assuming it's Thassa's Oracle, but, like, you can finish off with other things too, in other formats, but Pioneer seems like it would probably be Thassa's Oracle. Moving on, we come to the more exciting stuff, my favourite formats. Modern, we've got Field of the Dead, Mystic Sanctuary, both banned. Because of the inevitability and the difficulty to interact with these cards in the mana base, this is the first like admission that these cards, well, not the first admission, Field of the Dead was like banned in other formats too, right? But it's the first admission that these cards are just way too fucking good. And they are. They are. These lands should arguably have never been printed. Field of the Dead feels incredibly powerful and perhaps on the power level of Legacy and even Modern, but as this ban suggests, it's probably a bit too far. And Mystic Sanctuary is just obnoxious. A fetchable land that allows you to basically regrow a spell, like a Cryptic Command, for example, is a common one, was what it felt... It felt good to play. A lot of this stuff does feel good to play, but playing against it kind of fucking sucked. Tybalt's Trickery is now banned, and of course, Uro is also banned. Tybalt's Trickery is one that is interesting because it's rather glass cannon. It's not quite the cascading into a Valkyrie, which we'll come to in a moment on our second part of this video. But like Tybalt's Trickery, a lot of people think is a meme. I played it a little bit last week. It doesn't really feel like a meme. Well, it does. It feels like Neoform did, but it feels more consistent than Neoform. Neoform, you have to have a set amount of cards to get there, which you can't anymore. We'll come to that in a moment. But it has a certain amount of cards to get there, and you can mulligan to Oblivion and just fail miserably, right? Tybalt's Trickery, you hit 3 lands, cascade a spell, hit Tybalt's Trickery, and you're off to the races. It was a lot more resilient for that reason as well, to things like hand attack, because you need to rip a cascade off the top. Tybalt's Trickery was like Neoform in its level of stupidity, but just better. So to see it go so soon, I'm fine with it, honestly. No skin off my nose, right? And then we come to the Mana Monkey in Modern. Simeon's Spirit Guide is now banned. That's right, a 2/2 for 3 mana. It's not even good, is it? Simeon's Spirit Guide has a soft spot in my heart for being a key part of basically every ludicrous pile of complete fucking nonsense that I've played on this channel, right? Some of my favourite dumb decks that I enjoy playing for videos but don't enjoy playing against, the majority of them have used Simeon's Spirit Guide, Neoform being a good example, right? The important thing to note about Simeon's Spirit Guide going is that this is the biggest shake-up amongst any of these, in my opinion. I mean, Field of the Dead, Mystic Sanctuary, and Uro are all huge staples in the format, sure, but they haven't been in the staples for the longest period like Simeon's Spirit Guide has been. The Borborygmos Gristle decks, the Neoform Gristlebrand decks, Ad Nauseam, Oops All Spells, all of these decks are now going to have to pivot hard, find new tech, or might not even exist anymore. I feel bad for anyone who is a big Ad Nauseam player, right? Like, I mean, you could probably still play, your win condition isn't Lightning Storm anymore, it's been Thassa's Oracle for the longest time, well, I said longest time, since Theros Beyond Death landed, but you don't have Simeons anymore. It's going to reduce the speed at which some of these decks go off, and that's kind of the reason they banned it, right? There's explanations on the article will be linked in the description below. I'm kind of like giving you the cliff notes here, my interpretation and my feel of what they said, and they wanted to neuter those decks in Modern, which is something that I think is admirable and the correct thing to do. The biggest running joke of Modern for the longest time has been that it's too fucking fast. It's meant to be a turn 4 format, and you're effectively dead in turn 2 or 3, right? So I'm sad to see the monkey go, but it makes sense. I think the fact that Mox Opal was banned and Simeon's Spirit Guide wasn't, was always a really odd one to me. Okay, now on to the real hot shit. Actually, you know what? I'll do Vintage quickly, get out of the way. Lewis of the Dream Den is unbanned. For those of you who don't know, Lewis is banned on power level reasons in Vintage. Very fucking rare, because Companion was busted, broken. It was an incredibly bad idea. But once they errated it, there's no reason to keep him banned, because the errata has decreased his power level significantly. Well, I say this, he can still get a Black Lotus back, right? But they're unbanning him to see if that will actually affect Vintage. I think that's a good idea. But here's the big one. Here's the chef's kiss, the fucking seasoning to this juicy steak of problem corrections. Legacy, I don't know. My first feeling of reading these bans, it feels like energy has been injected into my lungs and my very being and the format that I love, that is Legacy. First of all, Oko, Thief of Crowns, is banned, and that's good. It should have been banned a little while ago, in my opinion. It was too fucking good. It was showing up in like upwards of 20% of the metagame and the best decks in the format, which happened to be blue-green control piles and Delver. And yeah, it's unfun, it's incredibly powerful, it takes over the game, it's deceptively powerful. Newer players will start playing Legacy, and they will just continue to play a game of Legacy that they've lost because the Oko is winning them that game. I fucking hate Oko, it's one of the biggest mistakes we've ever seen. Next up, they banned Dreadhorde Arcanist. This is a card that is, again, deceptively good. Like, people think it's bad because it dies to removal, but sure. But if you protect it, like you would with a Delver, it doesn't just like beat your opponent down, it buries you in card advantage, and it's obnoxious. It's really hard for me to put into words how frustrating Dreadhorde Arcanist was to play against as a D&T player, especially where like its stat line is good against Thalia, for example. You can't even attack into it. Dreadhorde Arcanist was like Young Peasy, but instead of making 1/1s, it drew you cards instead, essentially, because every turn you were recasting Ponders and Preordains out of your bin, or it turned a Lightning Bolt into such a huge momentum, tempo, and resource swing that any non-combo based deck would not recover from it. So Dreadhorde Arcanist going is great in my opinion because it knocks Delver down a peg or two, and Delver's always going to end up being the best deck because Delver shells are the easiest way to abuse new cards, right? You have all this card selection in blue, you have a powerful threat that's easy to protect. It's not really resilient on its own, you need Daze and Force of Will and such. And then once you've got that blue suite and a threat, as long as you've got low cost cards like Dreadhorde Arcanist and such, they will slot in quite easily. I mean, I'm actually genuinely surprised that it didn't end up being like an Uro Delver deck that was smashing people up. It was more of an Oko Delver deck, but there you go. So Dreadhorde Arcanist and Oko, gone. And then they announced something I did not expect today. A lot of this stuff is like, Simeon didn't expect. I didn't expect the next one either. Arkham's Astrolabe is now banned in Legacy, and this is fucking hype. I have hated this card since people realized how good it was. Reduce the mana cost of Prophetic Prism by 1. Make it into a slow ponder that fixes your mana. Like Deathrite Shaman and Ponder had sex, and this is what came out. And it was just too fucking good. And I've been shouting about how fucking good and how dumb this card is in Legacy for a long time. The thing with Arkham's Astrolabe is that it not only replaced itself, which a lot of cards in Magic do, right? There's cantrips in red for 1 mana that replace themselves. But what it also did was make your mana base both consistent, because you can cast anything you want. So you can play 3, 4, or in some cases 5 color mana bases with almost no penalty. I mean, the penalty is you have colorless cards in your deck that don't pitch to Force of Will, but that's not really the penalty that people pretend it was. And what it also did was it made your mana base resilient to interaction and punishing effects. The greatest line in this whole announcement is just there's a paragraph about Arkham's Astrolabe, which I'm going to read verbatim. I wasn't going to read any of these out, but I think this one I have to, because reading it, I felt vindicated. I felt fucking vindicated. Arkham's Astrolabe is another card that has contributed to the power and consistency of Snowcoat decks. Traditionally in Legacy, deck builders need to make choice about whether you have easy access to many colors, or you build a mana base that's resilient to disruption like Wasteland and Blood Moon. Arkham's Astrolabe allows mana bases to have both high color flexibility and high resilience to mana denial. That's a uniquely important part of the Legacy metagame. Ultimately, we think a narrow class of decks having such resilience for relatively low investment is an advantage that leads to a less metagame diversity. And they're right. Like, the big prominent decks were taking up 6, 7, 8, 9% of the metagame at times, like Snowco and Rug Delver. Not that like Rug Delver was necessarily playing Astrolabe, but that's not the point. Diversity of decks was down again, which I believe, I'd have to go look it up, but I think that was one of the reasons they talked about Top as well, was that they wanted to open the metagame up when they got rid of Top many moons ago. I've been saying for a while that Astrolabe is a problem because it allows you to play whatever the fuck you want with very little downside, and the downside should be that you are punished by Blood Moon, Back to Basics, or Wasteland, or even Rishadan Port to an extent. But people told me those cards are unfun and lead to non-games, as if like Legacy doesn't have non-games already, when you've got the turn 0 combo decks, or the ability to put a show intel in against non-blue decks and just put an Emrakul into play. Like, Legacy isn't just that. A lot of people think it's just that. A lot of people think Legacy is just turn 1 and turn 2 combat. It's not. My point is, non-games will exist in a format where you can play with the most powerful things ever printed, barring the stuff that's obviously banned and only available in Vintage. So, having someone get wrecked by a turn 2 Emrakul, or having their red-black source blown up by a Wasteland and then they can't cast their black removal spells and they get overtaken by a creature-based deck, those things are just the same thing, but different strokes, variety, which is the spice of life. These changes, I feel like they make Death and Taxes like extremely playable again. I don't think the deck was bad. It's got some incredible toys recently with like Skyclave Apparition and shit, but now people's mana bases aren't as resilient anymore. Dreadhorde Arcanist, which was a fucking beating if you didn't have a removal spell on site. Basically you lost once it resolved and triggered once. That's gone. And Oko was also a problem, right? Because it was a great answer to all your equipment. I might sound low energy, but I'm not. I'm actually really fucking happy, like, to see these sort of changes to Legacy. I'm excited to play Legacy again from Wednesday onwards when these changes all take effect. And I also just want to tell all the people that were defending Astrolabe, saying like, you know, oh, but Blood Moon's so unfun. I want to just tell those people to go eat shit. Just like fuck off and eat shit. I'm so glad that it's gone. It's unreal. I do want to address one thing about Astrolabe that I hear a lot, and it's true. People say it reduces the entry cost to Legacy by making, you know, snow basics an affordable mana base over having to play a lot of duels. And whilst that's true, I do think it's at the detriment of the gameplay, metagame diversity, and the play patterns of Legacy. and at the detriment of many decks in Legacy. Goblins, D&T, Prison Stompy, that sort of stuff. I think if we want the format to be more affordable, what we really want to do is have Wizards of the Coast take responsibility for the staples that they can. I know they can't get rid of the reserve list, yada yada yada, but like fucking fetch lands being expensive as they are, like, we shouldn't give them a free pass because they've effectively nerfed the things they want to keep as collector's items by releasing a card that allows people to do whatever the fuck they want whenever they want. It's kind of like just rolling over and taking it, you know, getting kicked in the stomach over and over and just being like, yeah, sure, okay, thanks for the Astrolabe. You cuddle into it as they kick you in the gut again because they won't reprint the fucking staples that they can reprint. So you're right, it did make it cheaper, but I don't think that's really the long-term healthy answer for formats like Legacy and Modern. And the last bit as well in this whole announcement is that from effectively today and then Wednesday on Modo, the Cascade rule will be changed. It's not being changed exactly as how I mentioned it should be or could be changed in the video I did on it, but it's a similar thing. The new wording is you exile a non-land card whose converted mana cost is less than the cascading spell's mana cost, and then you may cast that spell without paying its mana cost if its converted mana cost is less than the spell's converted mana cost. It's wordy. I don't know if it's elegant, which is a word that I was throwing around a lot, but it works, right? You can't cascade into Valky and play Tibalt anymore. That was a fun week of ludicrous videos and content. But let's just like move on now, right? Play with the other Kaldheim cards that got overshadowed by Tibalt, and look forward to whatever it is that in Strixhaven that ruins everything. Honestly, I'm really happy with this Banned and Restricted announcement. I think, like I said, we don't live in a world where we're not going to get bans anymore, so I think they need to work on just banning the shit that they make mistakes with, which is a lot of shit. And I also think them being proactive enough to do this early. I mean, we all mocked Omnath getting the ban that it did in Standard a week after release, because that's not healthy, and I prefer they weren't doing it. But I'd also prefer that they didn't wait 2, 3, or 4 weeks and just destroy metagames and people's passion for the hobby and the game to then ban stuff because they think it will sell packs. Like, that's the other argument people make, right? They won't ban it until they've sold enough packs. And if they're banning it this quickly, that's not what they're trying to do. They're changing these rules very quickly and they're getting rid of Tibalt's trick. And maybe this has to be approached differently once paper's back, right? And people are buying into paper decks to play at paper events. But right now, outside of certain parts of the world, like Australia and shit, no one is able to do that. So I think having a different approach or a bit more of a gung-ho approach towards bans right now is reasonable. I don't think it should last forever necessarily, and maybe they can stop designing so many fucking dumb broken mythics, but when it comes to the cards that are accidentally broken, or they were accidentally more powerful than they thought, well, Oko was that too, but Oko was kind of obvious. A Tibalt's trickery and the cascading into Valky and stuff, they didn't think they were going to warp the format, I'm almost certain of it. So those things having to get banned out early, I don't know. I don't really care anymore. Maybe I'm being beaten down. Maybe it's that this is happening so much. I make so many of these fucking videos and play so much Magic every week with this sort of stuff happening that I'm just like, yeah, fuck it. Just do it. Just do it. Maybe I'm the one rolling over and taking it. I don't know. I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section below of the Banned and Restricted announcement today. I'm fucking psyched. I think the shake-up of Simeon and Modern and the shake-up of Astrolabe and Oko and Legacy is wonderful. And I look forward to exploring those formats for a good couple of weeks until Strixhaven breaks them. I've been Vince, also PleasantKenobi on the internet. Don't forget to hit that like button, smash that bell, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like my shit, not my actual excrement, but the videos that I make, you can subscribe to my Patreon, the link down below. And for $2 a month, you can have access to my Discord, where I will shout at you and tell you to fuck off. It's a service.
Lekker